just recently graduated. Yeah, I just graduated this past April. I was a nursing major. I was also an international student. So currently I am working as a nurse at Western Psychiatric Hospital. So let me know if you have any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Chris, how about you go next?
Sure, thank you. My name is Chris Butor. I work at a company called Ansys. It's just south of Pittsburgh. I am an alum of Pitt, graduating in 2009 in computer engineering. And I've had the opportunity to work in many different roles at Ansys, from entry-level development up to what I'm doing now, project management and team management. It has offered me the opportunity to work with an international group of developers and engineers, as well as perform short stints in our international offices, since we are a global company with many locations across North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond.
Great, thank you. Justina, how about you go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Justina, and I graduated from Pitt Business in December 2019. And now I was an international student too from Singapore. And now I'm working with BNY Mellon as an operations analyst as part of their OCAP program for 2 years.
Great, thank you so much. Emil?
Hi everyone, my name is Emil Shah. I am currently a Global Ties mentor. I am a senior majoring in bioengineering, and I will be graduating in the spring.
Great, and our last panelist, Alkaid?
Right, hello everyone, I'm Alkaid. I'm an international student from New Zealand. I'm a junior studying philosophy and econ. So I'll be graduating in 2022, right? Yeah.
Very good. And also just a reminder, I forgot to say this at the beginning, you probably heard this meeting is being recorded in your earbuds, but this meeting is being recorded. It also was in the chat. So just so that everyone is aware, students, that you know that this is being recorded. How this is gonna work is that I have a series of questions. For each question, about 2 panelists are gonna answer it, just so that we can be cognizant of time. And the first question is really more geared towards our alum who have already graduated. How did your time at the University of Pittsburgh prepare you in finding your first professional role after graduation?
So I'll talk about my experience. Mine was definitely like a more direct connection, because as a nursing student, we have our clinical hours that we do around different hospitals, the UPMC campuses. So I had my psychiatric rotation at one of the units at Western Psych, and I really loved it. So I ended up requesting to have my senior clinical, the transition semester, to put it in there as well. And then I eventually just stuck around and ended up working for that unit. And I think clinical is definitely one of the great opportunities you get as a student, because you have like access to all these unit directors. They love when students come talk to them, just stop by their office and ask, oh, I'm definitely like interested in working on this floor afterwards. And it was just a very easy transition. So it even like my interview wasn't even that formal. I just got to chat with the unit director a couple of times every time I went into for a clinical, and I ended up getting hired there. So
I think that that's so important, because it really talks so deeply about the importance of networking, right? And making those really positive connections while you're doing your different rotations, while you're doing your internships, and how, just like you were saying, that it really led very easily almost right to that first position. So that's great. Do any of our other panelists want to answer that question?
I'll echo that. That was what my experience was upon graduation. I had the opportunity to work through the co-op program to establish a relationship with the company I'm at now. And I think taking advantage of those internship opportunities, the clinical opportunities that were just spoken about, co-oping programs, it's all, like you said, Erin, about networking. And by being able to establish those connections early on in your university career sets yourself up upon graduation to establish and then connect with those networking connections. So as a hiring manager now, it's very easy for me to know, students at the University of Pittsburgh have this type of educational experience. This is what they're exposed to, and we are confident at Ansys hiring University of Pittsburgh students. So if we can engage and connect early on, it is very easy for us to bring those folks on board and know that they will be contributing immediately to the projects here at Ansys. So it's important to establish those connections early. If you don't have the opportunity for an internship, co-op, clinical experience, that's okay. Still reach out. There are virtual events that are going on through the Career Center that you can take advantage of to build that network so that your opportunities are as best they can be upon graduation.
Excellent. And Chris, thanks for the shout out for the Career Center. I appreciate that. And that's exactly what I was going to say. What is really important with the networking component and get experience is not only working with your department, your advisors, but really also working with the Career Center. So that's just doubling your exposure to different companies, to different experiences, to different skills that you're learning. They can be really beneficial and make you really marketable once you get into that interview seat. Thank you so much. Okay, so the next question is, how do you feel your status as an international student hindered or benefited your career opportunities? And this can be for our students too that are international, our student panelists.
I can answer that one. So I like that it says hinder or benefit your career opportunities because in a way it benefits you because a lot of companies love that you have experience and or experience communicating with people from all backgrounds, or you know how to work with others from all different sorts of backgrounds. But in a way it hinders you because of I'm not sure how many of us here have had roadblocks with paperwork and all that, and hindering opportunities, especially in the US where a lot of jobs or a lot of employers seek that you are a permanent resident or US citizen. And so in a way it can be discouraging. But for me, it took a lot of searching hard and networking and making sure, or just communicating with employers, like, do you take in international students? And it just takes an extra step for us to really seek out opportunities. So in a way it can be difficult, but there are opportunities out there.
I like how you address both sides, right? Excuse me, so that there can really be both positive and a little bit of hindrance involved. Do any of our other international panelists want to address that question?
Yes, I definitely had a lot of experience with the roadblocks that Justina was talking about. I think it's always very important. I think there's like two sides to it. You don't want to just directly go in there with just saying, oh, I'm an international student. Do you hire or possibly sponsor visas? And then they instantly say no. Then you're like, okay, well, it's time for me to head out. But also, so that if you say that like right up front, maybe you don't like waste as much time and energy trying to go for this company that they already know that they don't sponsor visas or give opportunities for international students. But also, I think, so for instance, in my case, when I first applied, I told them I will work with my student visa status for the first year. And then we'll see how it goes from there. So I just kind of made my way in, and then I kept emailing the HR director, just kept emailing them, this is my situation. Is there any way you guys can work this out? At first, they definitely said, no, we don't do any of that. But I kept emailing them and it kind of worked out. So I think, like Justina said, it can be discouraging sometimes because they will right away tell you, we don't sponsor visas. but there's definitely ways you can maneuver through it. So
That's great. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that you brought up the sponsorship, because that's such an important thing. And it's really I work with students too that are having that as part of the package, right? They need that. And it is really important as you're doing the job search process to make sure that you're very upfront that yes, I need sponsorship, because you don't want to get so far in the process and then they love you, you love them, you're so excited, it's like, oh wait, you need sponsorship, and then it can be really discouraging, really upsetting. So make sure that you're honest about that and really talk about that up front, so that all the cards are on the table. You really know what to expect. All right. This question is going to be for everyone, and I'd really love to hear from our student panelists as well, is what classes do you feel really prepared you for your experiences? And that might be your internships, your leadership experience, your full-time jobs.
Yeah, I can answer that question first. Because I'm a senior, I'm taking a lot of my senior capstones right now. So a lot of those are very, very relevant to my classes. As an engineer, I really want to go into like medical product design, biotechnology design, like FDA regulations, that kind of stuff. And so a lot of my classes are geared towards that. Like I'll take them and they'll actually teach us about how the FDA works, how our medical devices approved, things like that. And so that information is very relevant because when I go to an internship or a job offer, they're like, how much do you already know about this? I'm like, oh, I already know a lot about it. So a lot of the freshman, sophomore year classes that I took were very, very like, basic, like chem, physics, like, everyone kind of takes that. But when I took my electives, I really, really, really looked at the course descriptions and asked myself, how would I rephrase this on my resume? Or how would I rephrase this to an employer and explain it to them? And that helped me whittle down the courses I was going to take. Because there are a few courses that sound very, very good on paper, but if you read the descriptions, I would not get anything out of those classes as I would other ones that are kind of overlooked. So that's how I approached it.
Emil, I love that. And I love your process too of thinking, how can I reword these descriptions for my resume? And then even taking it a step further for your interview, all of that, it's so important, and just keeping that line going. Fabulous. Thank you.
I just wanted to add also one quick point, but that's not like a one-way thing. Like I also have taken many classes that I'm also very interested in that I didn't necessarily know would lead to a specific career, but then I found that there are skills that I learned. Like if there was a project, I learned extra teamwork. If there was, it's like those questions on applications that are like, have you ever experienced a challenge? And this one class, even if it's not relevant to my career, it gave me a lot of challenges. So there's always pros and cons to everything. I just wanted to add that. Always take also what you're interested in.
So true. And just touching on that, a lot of transferable skills. And that even goes not only just for the classes that you've taken, but even part-time jobs that you've had throughout your experience, right? They might not be completely relevant for the job or the industry that you're looking at, but being a barista at Starbucks has a lot of transferable skills: problem solving, customer service, teamwork, time management, all of these things that are so important. So make sure that you're sprinkling those in to your resume, to your cover letter, to your interview prep.
That's so true. Thank you for saying that.
Okay, any classes that you've taken that you thought were really beneficial for you?
So like another perspective to take on the issue, is that like you can think about what each individual classes contribute to your development, but you can also think about what a certain combination of the classes and then how that helps you. For example, for me, I took game theory along with some psychology classes, along with interpersonal communication, and those classes, although they're offered by different departments, obviously they can go together in a certain way in business, like problem solving, interacting with people, like getting network. Like you can select some of your classes from all different places throughout your camp, like your university years, and try to make a meaning out of it. Like reasons why you took a certain combination of classes, or what those combination of classes have in common, and what they taught you, like that kind of things. So yeah.
I love that so much. It's almost like you're framing it in the sense of like build your own adventure, right? So you have these different blocks that you can put together to create a story. And I think that that's such a creative way to present yourself during interviews, internship experiences, anything like that. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And then to add on to that, obviously it can be intentional, like you can try to plan ahead, but also, sometimes you just happen to find classes that, goes really well together.
Definitely, I completely agree. So sort of talking about skills, and we touched on that a little bit. Were there any skills that you wished that you would have developed further during your undergraduate career or experiences that you had? And this can be open to anyone, even our student panelists, in the beginning years of your college experience.
I can go ahead and just answer
Great.
the question really quickly. You said the skills, right? The skills that we learned during our undergraduate career?
Yeah, skills that you wish that you would have developed more, or that you hope to develop more.
Okay. I honestly, there are a few technical skills, like, specific softwares or programs that I wish I kind of learned, but barring those, I think one of the most personal qualities I wish I developed more was just general confidence. I feel like a lot of times we're constantly comparing ourselves to our peers, constantly competing with each other rather than just appreciating where we are in the moment. And I'm getting into that point right now, but honestly, it took until my senior year for me to finally feel confident in my abilities, constantly feel confident in my resume and in my interviews. And so I think one of the skills I'm trying to develop too is presentation skills. So in a lot of my classes, we are doing projects and we're presenting them, and I'm looking forward to that because I'm not a very, very good technical presenter. I'm not very good at memorizing things. I'm not very good at recalling scientific information. So that's a quality that I'm really looking forward to. But I think one of the best parts, I also want to kind of turn around and just say that my department has been so helpful to me during my entire time here at Pitt. My advisors are all aware that I have this issue, and they will always try to give me resources. They always try to put me in situations that they think will be the best for me. Even if they're harsh and they're tough, they like to push me. They like to tell me that I have the potential. And so that's something that I also want to develop. That's just a confidence in myself to be able to go to the workforce with purpose.
That's great. And I love, really thinking inward of like, what do I need to develop more? And then allowing, that vulnerability to come out and to talk to your professors about that, talk to your advisors so that they can help you grow in that. That's wonderful. Does anybody else want to tackle that question? A skill that they wish that they had developed more or they want to develop more?
I agree with Emil. Sort of communication wise, just being able to network, and like we hear that word thrown around all the time, like, learn to network, but what does that look like? And in a way, it could look like just staying after class to talk to your professor, just to get to know them and ask them a few more questions, or just taking that extra step and not being scared to join clubs and take part in it and take a leadership role. And in a way, I wish I had done more, because I have seen, and not in a comparison game, but you really see the difference between students who take that extra step and how you don't recognize it then, but afterwards, like a few years down the road, you really see how much more opportunities networking opens up to. And so in a way, just being able, like having confidence and just being bold, just being a little extra, just having an extra boldness to you. Amazing.
I love that. It's just taking that a little step out of your comfort zone, right? So just pushing yourself just a little bit in different situations. And I think that it's amazing the opportunities that can really create for you. It's okay, I'm going to email this person, or I'm going to stay after class, or I'm going to talk after a networking event to the individual that I really connected with. Like all those little things, they're going to, number one, build your confidence, but also they're going to build your networking. And number three, it's also going to really help you in those next steps because you've already done it, right? So now you can feel confident doing those types of things again. So I love that. All right, our next question is, did you highlight your international experience during interviews and applications? If so, how?
I did. I think identity wise, it was very important. And I think employers, I'm not sure, Chris, what employers look for, but I think it's kind of an advantage to have experience internationally, like especially to have lived in a different country and moved, and in a way that can show adaptability, and which is a very important skill, especially in work. And so in a way, I highlighted it by just starting with my background and talking about how I've adapted to the US. And so that's one thing, but another way is also I took part in Society for International Business. I think it's still a club happening, but in a way, just touching on experience that you build in college that with global ties too, I think it was a huge highlight for me in my resume, where it shows your interest and ability to work with people from other backgrounds. Yeah.
That's great.
And
I love that.
I'll touch on a little bit of from the employer's side is do not underestimate not only your skills, but your experience. So being an international student, you've already taken a bold step to do something different. So leverage that in your engagement with companies, in the interview process. As hiring managers, we're always looking for things that are unique, that make you stand out against a list of peers and resumes. Sometimes all we see is the paper, and we're looking at those experiences in people's careers or their school experiences that highlight an alternate way of looking at things, or what new they could bring to the table at our company to increase the dialogue within teams, within business units, etc. So it is an asset. Don't look at it as maybe a burden to try to jump through hoops and worrying about sponsorship, etc. Make it a keystone of your narrative when you go to the employer and you are engaging early on in the process. And it's key to having a dynamic workforce that is diverse in culture, background, and experience. And I see that day in and day out when I'm working with the engineering team from many different parts of the world. So make it a keystone of your narrative. That would be my advice.
I love that so much, Chris, because I think that so often people and students especially, they want to be fitting into, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. It needs to look like this, this, and this. And that's how it's supposed to be in terms of your resume or your cover letter. And what really is so important is to have that unique aspect and to really lean into you as an individual and the experiences that you've had. And also, I love that, being an international student, you've already taken this really bold jump and this risk that's amazing. And so, talk about that. Everyone has their unique stories and people love to hear stories. So make sure that you're sharing that. I love that so much. Thank you. That's great from a perspective from hiring too. So students, please do that. Do you have any advice on taking advantage of our current circumstances to improve our professional skills? The current circumstances being the pandemic that we're all aware of, but how can we take advantage of that? How can we turn that around?
I think this pandemic and having less resources and in-person resources kind of forces you to become more proactive. It's not like you go to class and you see your professor every day, so you can just ask them a question, or it's kind of just knowing that you always have access to them. It's more you have to go out of your way to email these people that, especially for fresh first year students, you have never seen these professors, your peers in person, and having the courage, you have to have the courage to actually reach out to them, find their email, So I think it's definitely a skill that you can really learn from the circumstances, which was one of the skills that I really struggled my first year. I did not reach out to any of my professors. I needed a letter of recommendation. I ended up asking one of my high school teachers to write for me because I didn't know anyone from any faculty members at Pitt. So I think just really being proactive and reaching out to the people. Once again, the networking aspect. So yeah, I think that's something that you can really get out of this whole pandemic.
I love that. And one thing too, and I'm glad that you mentioned it in terms of letters of recommendation, right? That can be really challenging if you don't feel like you have a great connection with some of the professors yet. And something that I heard a while ago is that if you really try to make connections with one professor a semester, that by the time you're a senior, you're going to have potentially 8 professors that you can reach out to for letters of recommendation. So if you sort of have that as a goal for yourself, then that seems really obtainable, right? It doesn't seem overwhelming to just sort of stay for office hours for one professor each semester. So sort of be thinking about that as you're thinking about letters of recommendation. Anyone else have anything that they want to talk about, our panelists, in terms of taking advantage of the pandemic and skills to learn?
I thought it was kind of relevant, at least because I'm applying to grad school right now. And so for my statement of purposes, I have to outline everything I've kind of accomplished. And at the start of in around March, right, before spring break, I actually had an internship abroad for the summer and it got canceled because of coronavirus. And it sucked. I mean, I was heartbroken, obviously, but I don't know what happened. I kind of just got over it eventually, time heals all. And then I found another internship and I swung that around in my personal statement. I wrote yeah, I was heartbroken, but I wasn't going to just let myself be discouraged. What else was I supposed to do? Was I just going to sit around and stare at the wall and be sad for myself? No. So I moved forward. And even if the other internship I got wasn't as, monumental of an experience, I still had a experience. And I think a lot of my professors, when I sent them my statement of purpose, they were like, that highlights dedication. So it's and it doesn't have to be academic or professional, I have a ton of friends who got really into yoga. They got really into some of their hobbies. They got really into the outdoors. They found all these other things that, they didn't have anything else to do. One of my friends he was a Postmates driver. One of my other ones, he just used to buy groceries for people who couldn't leave their house. And I mean, those kinds of positions just show that you're not going to just sit around and just wallow in your circumstances. And I think to employers and to grad schools or wherever you want to go, that's really good, right? They don't want someone who's just if you get knocked on the ground, you're not going to pick yourself back up. So I think that's the best way of doing this, even if it's just picking up an instrument, whatever you want to do, just showing someone that you can make the best of your circumstances. You'll take advantage of what is happening and you'll move forward. I think that's the best way to navigate this.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that it's so wonderful, and it just begins to form your story, right? Which you use to your benefit with your statement of purpose, which is fantastic, because that's people connect to that because everybody's going through that. And they're like, oh, okay, I can totally understand how disappointing that must have been. But you're sad for a little while and then you move on. And it's sort of going exactly with what Chris was talking about prior, as really building that story and building something that makes you unique and leaning into that, whether that be at driving for Postmates or doing a new instrument or doing yoga, mindfulness, anything like that. Showcase it, talk about it. That's what makes you you. I always talk about too, within your resume, right? It's literally black and white information, and it's usually fairly dry. But once you get into that interview, that's the time to really showcase who you are and how you can really bring your own personality to that organization, right? And if you've made it to that point, they don't want to hear just a regurgitation of what you've done. They want to hear more about who you are. And those are the type of experiences and stories that they want to hear during those interview processes. So absolutely fantastic. I completely agree. And one thing too, just a little plug, is that if you're looking for new skills to learn, whether that be software, whether that be how to network, whether that be how to have more mindfulness experiences, we have a tool, Pitt itself, it's called LinkedIn Learning. And it's just on your Pitt portal. You could just type in LinkedIn Learning, and literally they have little courses on so many things. And you could even create on your resume a heading, LinkedIn Learning courses taken, and list those. And then that's going to showcase a little bit more about who you are, what you're interested in, what you want to learn more about, because that continual growth and that professional development and that initiative is going to look really, really good as you're going through their application process. Thank you. Let me get my questions back up. Sorry about that. How did your experience as an international professional differ from your experience as an international student?
I think it comes, for me at least, it comes down to having less resources for help. Being an international student, any question I had, I just went straight to OIS and the Office of International Services. Someone was able to walk me through it, help me with it. But I think now it's more, I have to do my own research, go out of my way to look for someone that has an answer to my question. Because at least in my circumstances, the workplace, they're not very familiar with all the paperwork the international students have to go through, which OIS, they do that on a daily basis. So I think for me, the resources kind of changed.
I think that's so true. And I think that that's something to really make sure, if you're currently a student, to really make sure that you're educating yourself and that you're making even those connections with individuals at OIS, so that if you do have a question once you've graduated, that it doesn't feel weird to reach out to them. You know, that you already have that professional connection with them to be able to help you through any of those processes, which is really important.
Yeah, I think the resources is a big one. And also, in a way, you're kind of on your own. And in a way, it's more integrated in your work culture where you can have coworkers or colleagues from the other part, like across the globe. Like we have teams in the UK, Singapore, India, all around the world. And so in a way, you don't have someone holding your hand on how to communicate with people or teammates from other worlds. You kind of just have to do it on your own. Whereas in college or university, for me at least, I had resources or friends to go to, or opportunities like events, like global ties events to go to, and in a way learn how to meet other people and communicate with one another. But whereas in a work environment, you're just gonna have to do it in a way. And so there's no holding hands, but in a way it's kind of nice because you get to be your own person in a way.
Yeah, I love that. You know, it's really about taking advantage of that. And like, you know, we talked about taking that step out of your comfort zone. And I think that, you know, moving into that professional experience, it's like, okay, I've learned all of this. Now what? And, you know, sort of be like, I know it. I could do it. I could put one foot in front of the other. I got this. And, you know, like believing in yourself to be able to do that. I think that's fantastic. All right, so I'm going to ask one more question, and I'd like all the panelists to answer it this time. And then we'll open it up to any questions that the students have that are listening right now. So the last question is, if you could give one piece of advice for the students that are listening, what would that piece of advice be?
I actually love that question. The one thing that I would say is just give yourself some time to breathe. Like, that's the best advice I can give you, because if whatever you do, if you do it with a calm mind as opposed to a stress mind, you're just gonna have more, like you're just gonna probably do better. And I also want to stress that even though I haven't graduated yet, I'm already aware that the path isn't linear. Like, you know, it's okay if you don't get into grad school. It's okay if you don't get that job. I mean, one of my parents were both immigrants when they came here, right? They did not even get citizenship until I was 10. And my parents both have professional degrees, but My dad is an engineer. He couldn't find a job for 10 years. My mom was a doctor. She couldn't find a job for 3. And now they're completely financially well off. And so they always tell me that. They say the path is never linear. You know, when the right opportunity hits, the right opportunity will come. You just have to just maintain some composure, just be calm, take care of yourself, drink some water, go for a walk, but it's going to be okay. It's okay you don't get that first internship, because maybe the second internship is better for you. Maybe you don't need to have an internship this summer. Maybe there's something else you need to do for your own personal growth before you actually get that right opportunity. So I just want to tell everyone who's stressed that it's going to be okay. Just give yourself some time to breathe.
I completely agree. You know, and I think that it's so important to be okay with whatever happens and to just trust that what happens is meant to be. And if you sort of have that mentality as you go through, then it doesn't feel as devastating when something doesn't work out. And it's everything is just sort of like this wave, right? You know, there's these ups and downs. And you know, for me personally, I always think of a roller coaster, right? You know, you have your ups and you have your downs. And when you're at your down, there's going to be an up. And like, don't get too comfortable in the up because there's going to be a down, you know, so sort of riding that consistently and knowing that what decisions that you make right now at this particular moment don't have to be what's going to happen for the rest of your life, right? You know, it doesn't have to be that dramatic of decisions. You still need to make those decisions, but it's not something that's going to be do or die. And I talk about my own story too. I graduated with an elementary education degree. I was an elementary teacher for years, decided to make a change, got my degree in higher education management, and now I'm a career consultant. So, you know, when I was 22, I thought I'd be a teacher forever, right? And things change and you take different paths and forks and all of those types of things. Any of our other panelists want to answer a piece of advice that you would want our listeners to hear?
I would say when it comes to engaging employers, all students can sometimes think that the companies are these walled, armored castles. There's a big moat in between, and I have to do all of these tremendous actions to even get close to opportunities. And that's not the way it is. I think of employers as more sympathetic than what you think they are. This is more of a journey that we go on when we engage with students and candidates for positions. So don't stress as much about having everything perfect and stitched together. We're all human beings and we all carry experiences from different backgrounds to the table. So go with confidence, but also know that don't be terrified of approaching companies and engaging and networking. We are people too, and we want to engage with you. So don't stress about that employer engagement, because sometimes I can see students get stuck in thinking it's this big and kind of corporate experience. It's people-to-people connections. Yes, we're doing it virtually now, but it's still a people-to-people connection. So see it that way when you're engaging employers.
We're all human, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all put our pants on one leg at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I always think about that too. So, you know, remember that there's human decency in all of us. It really is. There really is.
Hello. Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Actually, most companies ask for a GitHub profile. So how can I, like, what should I show in my GitHub? And like, should I include all the projects and all to actually interest them and show them my work?
Okay, so the question just wrapping up, should you showcase all of your projects within your resume? I'll answer that and then I'll probably let Chris touch on it. From my perspective, you really want to make sure that whatever you're putting on your resume is going to be relevant for the job that you're applying for. So let's say your project that you want to be a doctor and the project that you were working on was about pediatrics, right? So that would be relevant to put on. But if you had a project that was more geared towards computer science and you're applying for something within a nonprofit, that might not be as relevant. So you want to make sure that whatever's on your resume is going to be relevant for the job that you're applying for. And one of the things that I often tell students is to make what I call the big resume that has everything that you've done, really well written, and it might be pages and pages long. And then depending on the job that you're applying for, you're going to cut and paste what's relevant for that particular position. But Chris, do you have anything to add in terms of that?
Sure.
No, I was telling not about resume. I was telling like in the applications, they'll ask to provide your GitHub link. So in the GitHub link, like I do have a GitHub profile. Do I need to include like all the projects and all so that they can see that?
So I'll answer this two ways. One, kind of what Erin was touching on just general portfolios. General portfolios, yes, make them relevant to the position you are applying to. And I agree, you should have a full library and then catered libraries to those specific jobs. Now, to the specific question, with a GitHub repository, yes, for more computing-based positions, that is going to be a request. I would recommend that you include projects that exhibit your skills that are representative of how you develop software or technology. Do not include projects that are extremely, small and just thrown together. I think that's not going to show off well. So make sure that these projects are something that you could actively describe and showcase the way you implement technology. So no, it does not have to have every project, but make sure the projects you select are illustrative of your skills and your approaches.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And if there are any other questions, if you want to just put them in the chat, that would be great. We have about 10 more minutes, but I would like to give everyone a little bit of wiggle room because there is another session at 10. So it's the immigration attorney session, which is amazing. So if you're able to, I would definitely make sure that you go to that session. If you look in your chat, you'll see the Zoom link for that, and that does start at 10. But if there are any questions, you could definitely put them in your chat. All right, so we have one from Yelin. How do you make sure to get an interview after submitting your resume and cover letter? So this is probably for me and Chris again. But sometimes it's a mystery, and that's one of the things that can be a bit of a mystery. There's not like the perfect resume and the perfect cover letter that is going to guarantee you to get an interview. The best thing that you can really do is to put forth the documents that you feel like are a good representation of who you are, and then you put it out there into the universe and hope for the best. And that can be really scary to do. We talk about confidence, but one thing that can help with that is putting out a lot of resumes and a lot of cover letters, because it can be a numbers game. So there isn't like a answer that's like, I'm going to get guaranteed an interview. Obviously, making networking connections, LinkedIn connections, that's always going to help as well. But all those things just help you. They don't guarantee an interview. But Chris, anything that you want to add?
Right. I think sometimes we think that when companies post positions, they are going to move the next day when they get applicants for it. It's a bit longer of a process when it comes to corporate hiring. So do not be disappointed if it takes a few weeks to hear back from the company. They may be either fielding a lot of requests, they may have a lot of open positions, and the time or attention they're giving to a specific opportunity may be small. So that's the first thing. Don't be disappointed if it takes some time. Second is make sure you're applying for positions that are relevant to your skill set. When we get resumes that are loosely associated with the position, we're usually less inclined to follow up for interviews because we are looking for specific requirements, specific background of education and coursework and work experience. So make sure you are applying to those positions that are relevant to your skills and your education. And then third is do make those connections with with folks at those companies you're interested to work for, whether they are in HR, whether they are hiring managers, or whether they are employees, maybe past alumni at Pitt, because they too can add to your case when it is reviewed at the company. So those three things are what I would recommend.
Yeah, I completely agree. And definitely making sure, and both Chris and I touched on it, that that you are making those connections. And I love LinkedIn for that, because you could do a filtered search on alum. So you could go right to the University of Pittsburgh's page, click alumni, and search by area, search by company that they work in, search on major. And then so that can be a really great way to be making additional connections as well. Okay. Any other questions that anyone has? Okay, so we have just a few minutes until the immigration attorney session, but I really want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday morning to share your story. And if you do feel comfortable sharing any of your contact information, you definitely could do that, and we can disseminate that information. But students, thank you so much for showing up. This definitely shows initiative and drive. Hopefully you got some really great information from it, and that you're going to take advantage of some of the other opportunities that are happening today. And maybe I'll see you up in the Career Center virtually until we're back in person. But thank you again so much. Really, really had a great time this morning, and have a great Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. I had a question. Where do we share contact information?
Kianya, would you want to